Turns out that India just bought oil using their own currency rather than the dollar. And despite the fact that this is a significant news, it doesn't seem to make the headlines that much. Obviously, it's because they don't want people to care about it. If the news talks about something, it's because they want you to care, so they don't want you to care about this. What's shocking, though, is that I see a lot of people in the comment section not understanding the monumental significance of this and the fact that they're economic illiterate. But I don't blame them. I blame the US system for not teaching people about the importance of the petrodollar. So basically what happened a couple of decades ago, like it's really not that old, the US dollar went off the gold currency. So up until that point, your money actually had worth in gold. You went to the bank, you exchanged it for gold. But since that happened, money became paper. Now, it is a very dumb statement that many people will say that money has no value. It only has value because we believe in it. And while it is true in the most broad sense of the word, the reality is that the value that money brings is that it gives you freedom. Because if you don't pay your taxes, you end up in prison. If you don't pay child support, you end up in prison. So you need to get those dollars, even though they're a piece of paper and people claim they have no value. They do. If you don't want to go to jail, you best have dollars. Now, that's what the Americans care about, right? Like, the Americans have to get the dollar, even though it doesn't have its worth in gold anymore, in order to pay taxes, in order to pay child support, so on and so forth. But why would I need dollars? Or more specifically, why would the Romanian government need dollars? Well, it needs dollars if it wants to trade with America, right? So you have certain industries that produce stuff. So if Romania wants to buy it, they could say, well, we only sell in dollars. So Romania would have to procure the dollars in order to buy those things. But as you notice, the American industry is not what it used to be. Like, most of the things now are manufactured in China. Still, you know, it is a significant amount of why other people outside of America who don't have to pay child support or taxes would want to get dollars in order to do business with Americans. But again, like, this is a small percentage. So what the Americans realize is that most of the oil comes from the Middle East. So you have the United Arab Emirates, you got Saudi Arabia, right? You got Qatar, you got these countries which together have pretty much a monopoly on the world supply of oil. Now, there's other places you can get oil, but like, these are the primary ones that all countries try to get oil from. So America suggested that in exchange for defending them, they are going to sell that oil only in dollars. I think, like, if they rejected the deal, they would have been invaded. But still, right? So this is the petrodollar. Because if Romania wants to buy oil, they first have to get dollars, and after that, they use the dollars to buy the oil. Now, obviously, it's not actually like going and changing currency de facto. No, usually it's electronically based. But like, all in all, that's how it works, right? This is a very simplified way of explaining the process. Now, because of this, it's very difficult for Americans to cause inflation. Because no matter how much dollars they pump out, it's not going to be in their country. Other people want those dollars. So, like, for example, the Romanian government will want some of the dollars that Americans do so that they can buy the oil from the Middle East. Right? So, like, if Romania were to pump money the same way that the Americans are pumping their dollars right now, it would be an inflation of unimaginable proportions. Like, you would literally have trucks of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. But America can do it to an astonishing degree because, as I mentioned, like, the international community still wants the Benjamin. This doesn't mean that they can't create inflation. I mean, the current administration have tried their best. And even after 4 years of trying, the inflation exists, but it's not as bad as if any other country on earth would have done what they did. So that is like the thing. Now, what would happen if the United Arab Emirates and other countries that sell oil would choose to sell it in any other currency? Well, what would happen is that all those dollars that other nations want would return to America because they can't use it to buy oil, but they can use it to purchase American goods and services. So now all of the money that they printed would go back into the United States, and you would have an inflation of colossal proportion. So when I see people saying that the UAE converted it into dollars the next day, I understand that these people don't really know what they're talking about, or that the Indian rupee, like that, it doesn't really matter. Like, the problem isn't India, right? Like, it's not that they're a powerhouse or whatever because they're buying with rupees. The problem is that India doesn't need dollars as it used to, right? So, like, before, they would have converted their rupees into dollars, and they would have used the dollars in order to buy the oil. They don't need to do that now, all right? So there is less of a demand for the dollar, and the only thing you can do with the dollar now is to purchase American goods and services. So all of the dollars are going to return into the United States. Now, it depends, right? Just because like the UAE is selling their oil into other currencies, that doesn't necessarily mean that all countries are going to drop the dollar. Like, for example, some countries out of habit, or maybe because it's more profitable, or various agreements, could still choose to purchase the oil in dollars. But it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen, because right now the situation is very volatile. And the reason that the situation is volatile is because of the current Biden administration. So up until now, the Middle East would have increased the price of oil, lowered the price of oil, did literally whatever the Americans asked, without question. The problem is that the current administration, first of all, I think like they refused to protect some refineries in a situation with Yemen. Like there was some political tension going around there where the Americans had to defend the interest of Saudi Arabia and they didn't. That pissed off the Saudis. That like there was a time when they refused to answer Biden's phone call. Like that in an international situation is quite problematic. But the relationships were tense, especially with the Green New Deal bullshit, especially with the COVID pandemic, where all of these Middle Eastern countries were stacking up barrels and had no one to sell it to because like they shut down their own nation's economy, right? Like the reducing carbon to zero, like they don't like this, okay? So because of that, the current deal that they had with the Americans is buckling. And they're now willing to sell it to other countries using different types of currency. It remains to be seen what's going to happen, but definitely not good for the United States, and definitely not good for the American citizen, which is now going to have to deal with a couple more points, an increase in inflation. Probably not this year. The next 2 years afterwards, depends like how many countries are going to be able to buy oil without using dollars, and how much of those dollars are going to return within the borders of the United States. Because again, like the more cash flows in circulation, the bigger the issue. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.